Oh, thanks for agreeing to take part in our Simply the Best challenge. We just wanted to find out a few of the things you love best in the world.
Are you ready,
Yeah,
Jay?
yeah. Well, I'll try.
Okay, so first of all, we start off with your favourite song from the 80s that's not your own.
There's so many songs that I love. Gosh. I think probably oh, that's good, isn't it? I can't even. Annie Lennox, "Sweet Dreams." I think that's probably my favourite song. It just went out my head. But there's so many songs that I loved. I loved early David Bowie, you know, like "Let's Dance." I loved some of the Jackson stuff. I loved, you know, so many of those kind of cool bands, you know, like the Cult and all the really odd stuff, Depeche Mode and Human League. I mean, there's so much to choose from. And Baby is an absolute favourite as well. But I think Sweet Dreams just sort of changed everything. It gave it sort of was the beginning of an identity for where music was going in the 80s. So, and then I love the Eurythmics. So sorry, over that for a moment.
Next one. What's the best thing about growing up in the retro years? When you look back, what do you think? Oh, that was a good time. You know, that was what made my childhood special.
I think, well, obviously we didn't have mobile phones, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have any of that. So you had to keep yourself entertained. And I think as a kid, you know, my parents were in show business and they would travel away a lot. So as a kid, I'd keep myself entertained by making things. So I think there was a different form of creativity there. And whether it was meeting your friends at the park or I was very close to my neighbours and we'd play, you know, we'd talk and we'd play. We used to put shows on at the end of the garden. But when I was on my own at home, I'd sort of make clothes and I'd always dress my Barbie dolls. And I was more like, I'd be making things. And I think that was good. And I learned how to sew, dressing those Barbies up, which actually ended up kind of helping me later on in life. I've just covered some dodgy old sofa covers things that were on my sun lounger that were all ripped, and I just cut a few things up. And I'm really pleased because I was going to throw them in the skip, you know, I was going to throw them away. And I'm getting like a couple of years out of them. So yeah, no, I like making things, and I think that comes from when I was a kid.
And you took that through your career, didn't you, with Bucks Fizz? You made a lot of the costumes.
Yeah, I did, and I designed some of them. What was complicated? I mean, I can make probably anything, but it's just the amount of time, and I didn't have the time then. So we had a lovely lady, her name was Eudoxia, and she was like a Latino lady, and what I couldn't make, she would make. So any of the sort of more structured stuff. And she was lovely. And so now I'd draw things and she'd sort of go, oh, you can't do that, you can do this. So yeah, no, it was just trying to develop something for the band, you know.
And keeping in childhood times, Jay, what was your favourite childhood toy growing up? Was there one that you really remember fondly?
I loved, well, apart from my Barbies, which I was into when I was older. I mean, I had about 10. I had Ken. My dad did like a house for them, like couldn't afford going and buy a proper one. So he was a good, you know, he was good with carpentry. So he made me this sort of house, and I had a Ken in there. But when I was younger, I was mad on baby dolls. You know, baby dolls were my thing. Yeah. So I was that, and I'd feed them and put nappies on them and all of that. A bit like these reborn dolls that girls do today, but I was doing it when I was sort of, you know, in the 60s. So
you started a trend there, Jay.
Yeah, I used to make clothes for them as well.
Yeah. And what was your favourite sweets growing up? Confectionery.
When I came back from school, I'd have 3p old money. That's how long ago it was. At primary, and my favourite thing was a sherbet fountain and refreshers. And I could get a sherbet fountain and a packet of refreshers that were multicoloured, sort of fizzly sweets.
Yeah, love them.
And I'd have them pretty much every day. Wasn't very good for your teeth, but that was it. My dad would get his 40 fags in the local, you know, newsagent.
Yeah,
who used to pick up, and I'd get my sherbet fountain.
Oh, happy memories. And then back in the 80s, there were so many movies that were out at that time, but is there a particular movie that was your favourite one, Jay, during that decade?
Wow. I did like. I think it was the 80s. Ghost, wasn't that the end of the 80s?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
That was an amazing movie. I loved all the Ghostbuster stuff because it was just silly. But yeah, no, probably Ghost is something that stuck with me. Yeah.
What was your favourite TV programme of your childhood? That's a difficult one because there's so many, I know, but
actually, I think his name was the Galloping Gourmet. Yes. And I remember we used to watch, my dad was into cowboys, so we'd all sit around and watch The High Chaparral, which was about cowboys. So that was a family favourite. But the one that we used to love the most was this Galloping Gourmet. And I always remember when it wasn't very PC really, but he was doing this chicken and he was stuffing it with herbs and then he made it dance. And I was only a kid, I was about 7 or something. And it just stuck in my memory because we were howling.
He had an audience of ladies, didn't he? And he used to gallop down with the dishes.
That's it.
That's it. I remember it. Yes.
He was very funny.
Yeah. And going back to looking at funny anecdotes or during your career, Jay, is there something that you tell over the dinner table that always gets a laugh? It might be an embarrassing moment or something funny that happened on stage, but something that always sort of gets a laugh around the dinner table.
You mean back in the 80s? Well, because I did the costumes, I mean, there was only one sort of embarrassing moment, which was kind of hidden. You know, we kind of got away with it, but it was there was a song that was called "If You Can't Stand the Heat," and I made these costumes out of chamois leather and ropes and sort of all things to do with the kitchen, because the line was "If you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen." Yeah. And I made like Cheryl a pair of a skirt out of oven gloves, and you know, we were anyway. It was all kind of, you'll see it online if anyone's interested. It's called "Can't Stand the Heat." And we've been wearing these and we've been flying in and out to promote and stuff, and they were getting a little bit warm because they were only literally tied together with a few stitches, and there was this one movement I had to do with Bobby on "Can't Stand the Heat," which was like a bit of a, you know, and this bit came off.
Oh no.
And it wasn't a thing you could really wear much of a bra with.
No.
It was like, you know, it was like, yeah, bit commando up on the upper decks. And so it was fortunately right at the end of a live Top of the Pops. And I sort of suddenly hugged Bobby while I was trying to hold it up. And, you know, literally at the end, thank God it was the end, because if it happened at the beginning, I'd have been in real trouble. So we kind of got around it. But it was literally, you know, it could have been all there, all bare.
So what do you think is the best moment of your career so far? Maybe not that's the funniest, but what's the best moment?
Well, winning Eurovision, really. Yeah, it's hard to beat that.
No.
Because you know, within a few votes, you've got a career. I mean, next year's our 40th, and we were planning big things, but we don't know what we can salvage now. We were hoping to do we're talking about the Indigo at the O2, and all sorts of different venues were coming up as a possibility. So yeah, I mean, those moments changed our life. And although I left the band for quite a few years, you know, you trade off of that success, and it was an amazing moment. And it's such a shame that, you know, it's so hard to win Eurovision, but it sort of makes it even more special. So yeah, I remember when we won, we went into this room and there were hundreds of photographers and all the flashes were going off, and then you realise, oh my God, you know, I was just a kid. I'd done a few plays, a bit of Summer Season, a bit of panto. My mum and dad were in shows, and all of a sudden, overnight, sort of people are recognising you, and it was just amazing.
Oh, it was incredible for everyone watching as well, Jay. It's a moment that will live with so many people for all their life.
Yeah, it was lovely. Thanks God for the old Velcro, eh?
Yeah.
Talking about all your wonderful costumes, Jay, including the skirts and everything in the Eurovision Song Contest, is there a favourite item of clothing of all time for you that you really loved wearing and you've got fond memories of?
Well, I think the Land of Make Believe outfit, which I found them in the King's Road, and when I found them, they were in one of these slightly alternative shops, and I was thinking, who would wear that? You know, how would you wear that to a club? And it had these like leather cone boots, which is a bit like what Madonna did, but she did them like 4 years after us.
Yeah,
so
they were ahead of their time.
They were ahead of their time. And I loved shopping in those little boutiques and stuff down there. So I think probably the white leather Carnival, and actually a fan bought it, and I'd forgotten that a fan had bought it. And she reminded me, you know, years after, and she, "I still got your uniform, your Leo." I couldn't remember what had happened to it. So yeah, no, I think that those outfits, I think the look for Land of Make Believe was really striking, and probably one of the best looks I came up with.
Oh, brilliant. Next one, who's your favourite band or musician from the 80s or from all time?
I love David Bowie, and I loved Kate Bush. I'd say they're my two favourite people, because they were real artists. And if I have a criticism, you don't have to push yourself, and they were like real artists, and they were just pushing the boundaries. So I'd have to say both of them. I couldn't really choose between the two, but they were amazing.
So expressive, both of them, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, Wuthering Heights, it was like a breath of fresh air, wasn't it? She was really kooky, but she was so creative, and I still listen to some of her albums today. So you know.
Yeah, you never tire of them, do you? They're brilliant albums.
No, they bring back a feeling that you had when you first discovered it, and I think that's why the 80s thing is still precious to people, because it sort of takes you back to some kind of childhood thing that was like, wow, this was a new thing, you know. So it's not just what you're seeing, it's like the memories involved with it.
That's it. It's very poignant. It's like when you smell a certain smell, it just brings you back. It's music has that sort of impact, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
What's the best motto or philosophy in life?
Well, there's kind of two things. When I was a kid, I was 14, I suppose. And my parents were in the summer season in North Wales, in Llandudno, and I was there for about 5 months, which was kind of odd because I tried to go to school there and it was all just a bit weird. And I also got my first job there, and I was working in a cafe. And so we used to go to this a little cafe opposite, which was like a tea room. So there was this old lady, and she was literally in her 90s. And for some reason, she came up to me and gave me this card. And it said, take risks. Chances are you'll never regret them. And it just was like, she'd obviously lived through 2 wars, and I think she'd decided that you'd have to go for things in life, you know. And it was just a message to me. You know, it was like, was she a little angel? I don't know.
Oh.
But it was what she kind of decided, and she was literally, you know, 94 or 95, whatever. And that was what was important to her. So I've always kind of kept that.
Yeah.
As a
story. Really lovely story. The wisdom of older people is something that's sometimes lost now, but I think there's a lot that I hold a lot of store in that, because they've done it all before and they can pass it on. So absolutely. Yeah, my mum, I think that's one thing that it's important to hand down what our parents and our grandparents have realised about what's important in life. And I think what we're all going through now, it's even more so those things, you know, buying a new pair of shoes or buying all of that. It's all like, what really matters is, you know, when you've gone through your life and have a chat with an old person, and they always come up with very similar things. And so I'd always, you know, I listened to what they said. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, thanks, Jay. Just for fun now, here's a few quick fire either or questions. So if you can just say the first thing that comes in your mind. You haven't got much time to up or anything.
Right, are you ready, Jay?
I'll try.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Beach or countryside?
Oh, I love the beach, but I love the countryside. That's really hard. I can't decide. If I have to, I'd probably say the countryside, but I love beaches. Very happy on a beach.
Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Pepsi or Coke?
Oh, it's no odds. Coke. Diet Coke.
Are you
Can't
an
taste
early Diet
Can't
Coke?
taste the difference.
Are you an early bird or a night owl, Jay?
I'm more of an early.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Spicy or mild?
Mild.
Saver
Yeah.
or spender?
Especially with me. What was that?
Saver or spender?
Oh, I'm a spender. I'm good for the economy. I am. I'm good for the economy.
We've got to help it now, haven't we?
Absolutely. I know it must be in severe trouble. I think it's going to have a blooming heart attack soon. We'll be paying for this for decades. I know it sounds all right at the moment, but oh my goodness. Yeah.
At least the shops are open today anyway. So.
Lots of queuing, I hear. Right, next one, comedy or drama?
Ooh. Well, that's the thing. It's whether it's good. And I think it's hard to be great at comedy, but it's probably easier to be drama. I'll probably go for drama, but I've lost faith in a lot of comedy these days because it's become so PC and we've become so conscious of not offending anyone that we can't take a joke anymore, which I think is absolutely important part of our nation. It's what got us through 2 world wars. So you've hit a point there, but I'll stick with drama so as to not upset people.
Okay.
Ska or reggae?
Ska or reggae? Oh, probably reggae.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And finally, the Birdie song or Agadoo?
What a choice! I have to go for Agadoo. I mean, at least it had Agadoo. There was the Birdie song was just a bit too far, wasn't it? Off the cliff.
Thanks so much, Jay. You've been a great sport with those questions.